Donald Trump is in such deep cognitive decline. His brain is so broken that he accidentally leaked a fatal diagnosis at a press conference today and didn't even realize it. He made a medical announcement that is rocking his term that stunned Mike Johnson, silent, Pam Bondi, silent. The entire press corps in the room was silent, and Donald Trump didn't even realize. And somehow that wasn't what got him kicked off of air, because Donald Trump's disastrous diatribe continued until it was just too much for anyone to bear. This was one of the more shocking displays of what is broken in Donald Trump's brain. But of course, it started with him hyping himself up, getting angry, getting furious that world leaders aren't supporting his illegal war effort enough. He was attacking them before he let it slip and then ultimately was let off air.
We're protecting you, and you don't want to get involved in something that is very minor. Very few shots going to be taken because they don't have many shots left. But they said, we'd rather not get involved. I just want the fake news media and everybody else to remember that was said, because I've been a big critic of all of the protecting of countries, because I know that we'll protect them, and if we ever needed help, they won't be there for us. I've just known that for a long period of time, just like I knew about the Strait, that it would be a weapon, which I predicted a long time ago. Predicted all of this stuff. You guys were very generous in that. I predicted all of it. I predicted Osama bin Laden would knock out the World Trade Center. I made that prediction a year before he did it. I said, you better get him. He's a bad guy. I watched him be interviewed one time, and I said, that's a bad guy. You better get him. 1 year before, exactly. I wrote it in a book. You can even check. About a year before the World Trade Center came down, President Clinton actually had a shot at him, and he didn't take it. Unfortunately, I'm not blaming him for that, but he didn't take it. And he ended up knocking down the World Trade Center, but I predicted that too. I predicted a lot of things.
So Donald Trump is now demanding that the rest of the world get involved in an illegal and senseless war and help him reopen a shipping strait, the Strait of Hormuz, so that prices go down that he caused to go up by starting a senseless war. So Donald Trump is clearly not aware of the sunk cost fallacy. Donald, you started the war. Getting further involved in the war, because the war has already begun, is not going to make it better. Do you understand? It's the same problem that I have with Democrats right now who are saying about Donald Trump's illegal war effort. Well, we already started, so I guess we're just being dragged into it. You don't have to. You do not have to support this. And other countries are saying, we're not going to send our troops to die. We're not going to send shipping vessels down this pathway that is being bombed and that there's mines sprinkled throughout. Why would we do that? Hey, Donald, I think Barron is of age to enlist. Maybe he drives the tanker. Maybe Captain Barron gets out there if it's so safe. But Donald Trump is now calling on other countries to do his bidding because he doesn't care who lives or dies. And that is exactly what he made clear when he announced the fatal diagnosis that Republican Congressman Neil Dunn of Florida, who a few weeks ago announced that he would not be running for re-election, what Donald Trump had to share about him. It was not just Trump leaking the fatal nature of his diagnosis, but what he said after was disturbing.
Had a pretty grim diagnosis, and I mentioned it to the president, and I said, Congressman Dunn is a real champion and a patriot because he's still coming to work, and if others got this diagnosis, they would be apt to go home and retire.
What was the diagnosis?
It was, I think it was a terminal diagnosis.
He would be dead by June.
Okay, that wasn't public, but yeah, okay, that's, it was grim, that's what I was going to say. I don't think...
With a heart problem, by the way, this was a heart problem.
So, long story short, the president called him to encourage him and thank him, and they had a conversation, and the president mentioned in the course of the conversation, you know how to get my doctors involved, and they did, and within a number of hours, they took him to Walter Reed, emergency surgery. The man has a new lease on life. He acts like he's 30 years younger, and he walked into the conference meeting, and we thought we'd seen a ghost, and I spoke with him over the weekend, and he's encouraged and thankful, and he thanks the president for his leadership and intervention, and thank you.
He actually called, Mike called me, and he said, sir, we're up by 3, but we're going to lose 1 by June. I said, who? Neil Dunn. He's a great congressman. Incredible. He called to say that he was terminal, really bad heart. There's nothing they can do. I said, that's bad. Number 1, it was bad because I liked him. Number 2, it was bad because I needed his vote. But he really said, Mike, I'm going to last this out for the president and you, and however long I live, it looks like June is the time, but however long I live, I'm going to I'm going to be voting for you. I mean, how many people are going to say that? Most of them are going to say, Mike, I'm retiring immediately. That's the end.
Of course, that is how Donald Trump feels. And imagine being Neil Dunn. Imagine being this Republican who is spending the last months of his life in Congress serving dear leader Donald Trump. Oh, well, we got to serve dear leader and Mike Johnson. We got to make sure we can kick people off their health care, right? That we can attack trans kids. Got to make sure we can do that. That's how I want to spend my last dying days. I don't know why he has a southern accent. He's from Florida. I don't know if he has an accent. But imagine sticking it out instead of spending time with your family and friends, only for Donald Trump to say, well, quite frankly, we need him because of his vote. We love that vote. It's a great, big, beautiful vote, and I'd like to have it. So please stick around. We don't care that you're dying. But this is what we've been talking about for a while now, that any little blip in this Republican majority, if you lose a Republican, if you lose one person in the House, then it's a one-vote majority. And then Thomas Massie, who sat on the Democratic side of the aisle during the State of the Union, he's in control of the House. He might be able to say, well, Mike, you're not cutting it. I think we're going to have a Democratic speaker, or we're going to have a different Republican speaker. He can throw the entire House into disarray. Donald Trump doesn't want that. And he doesn't care if it means that Neil Dunn has to suffer through the final months of his life with a diagnosis that was not supposed to be public, which Donald Trump with his fucking pudding brain was like, well, I heard he's dying, and I think he is already dead, right? That's sad. We don't like to die now, do we? Dying is, I think they've said it's bad. It's not good. And he just let it slip. And Mike Johnson, you saw, was like, what the fuck? But somehow, some way, Donald Trump continued in his broken brain to word vomit everywhere. And he started talking about how smart he used to be in the past, and why this informs his view of war.
Here we've made incredible strides to restore the true purpose and prestige of this revered institution. Together we're going to ensure it remains the finest performing arts facility of its kind anywhere in the world. And I don't know that it ever really reached that stage, but it will over a period of time. We're rebuilding it. It's
okay. We're going to wait until we hear some questions that are addressed to the president. But can I have this? Because I just wanted to fact check one thing that the president said, that he had predicted that Osama bin Laden would hit the World Trade Center. He was referring to a book that was published in January of 2000. One day, we're all assured that Iraq is under control. UN inspectors have done their work. Everything's fine. Not to worry. The next day, the bombing began. One day, we're told that shadowy figure with no fixed address named Osama bin Laden is public enemy number one, and U.S. jet fighters lay waste to his camp in Afghanistan. He escaped back to some rock. And a few news cycles later, it's a new enemy and a new crisis. And then he says that dealing with many different countries at once may require many different strategies, but there isn't any excuse for the haphazard nature of our foreign policy. We have to reinvent the wheel for every new conflict. So it's a hyperbolic claim that the president just made. The rest of the statements about the war, I think, are very much familiar to anybody who is following it, that the United States is far ahead, that they've decimated much of what Iran has, and yet he asked for help from NATO allies to get the Strait of Hormuz open. So far, no takers.
So Donald Trump, in that clip before he was cut off, was bragging about the fact that, in the past, he knew better than Republican presidents when it came to war, and that their efforts and undertakings were misplaced, and that they misunderstood the fight in front of them, and that Donald Trump says you got to do things differently. You got to attack this from a different angle. And in what way has he done that? In what way has Donald Trump waged a better war? One, I don't know what a better war would be. I don't know what a smarter war would be. But Donald Trump has failed to achieve really any of his outcomes. The regime change that he wants isn't really regime change when a leader dies and then their son is put in charge, someone younger, more radical, more scorned, plotting for revenge with a reason clearly to carry it out. And so what was Donald Trump's objective? What were we doing? Of course, besides distracting from the Epstein files and doing what the Israeli government wants us to do, start a war with Iran. And of course, that will probably end up being, a war with Lebanon as well. Is that where we're going to go next? Where are we going to go next? Where does Donald Trump want to take us? I don't know. Doesn't really seem like the man has a plan. What a shock that is. Donald Trump doesn't have a plan. And so his criticism of Republican presidents of the past, well, I was so smart, doesn't really, it kind of rings a little hollow. I don't know why anyone would ever believe Donald Trump, but especially Marjorie Taylor Greene saying that. She has been, I think, the one most loudly calling out Donald Trump, and certainly did right here.
But I do completely disagree where the president has led the country. You know what? It makes absolutely no sense, Pamela, going into midterm elections. Let's remove Donald Trump out of it. Let's just put any president in there. Why would an American president lead his political party into the midterms, waging a full-scale major war, completely unprovoked on Iran, on behalf of Israel, and that's the way most Americans see it.
Marjorie Taylor Greene is clearly very set on disrupting this administration and putting a wedge between herself and the rest of MAGA on these very issues by saying that if there is going to be a new MAGA movement, much like when Donald Trump first started it, you have to abandon the elites in the establishment. And those elites in that establishment are the people who occupy Donald Trump's White House. Now, that is not to say that Marjorie Taylor Greene is some champion for the working class, that her political philosophy is one that will better America, but it is certainly more in line, at least in a public-facing sense, than what Donald Trump and his stooges in the White House are trying to sell. And so Marjorie Taylor Greene has that great advantage in the way that she attacks this White House, and she is successfully highlighting the way that it is ripping itself apart. There is currently a fight over whether Donald Trump made a massive mistake, by the way he did, in going to war. And everyone right now trying to protect their future is leaking how they really feel. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is egging that on, and it has been delicious and beautiful to watch.